Hey guys, what's up? Coming to you live from my car. Happy Thursday. I hope everybody's had a great week so far. I don't normally do videos like this, but I just kind of wanted to take a moment and share with you some things that have really been laid on my heart lately. And yeah, so if you know me, that you know that I'm not quiet about my faith, but I don't necessarily just proclaim it to the nations, right? Well, I don't know, I've just been having some revelations lately and would love to share it with you guys. So I've had the privilege lately to be part of some really awesome sermon series at a couple different churches, and I just feel so blessed to get to hear the word. You know, sometimes I think that we just get caught up in this idea that, oh, gotta go to church on Sunday, gotta be a good Christian, blah, 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 blah. But gosh, in some third world countries, I think that there's people that don't even know Jesus, and that just breaks my heart the more that I get to know him. You know, the fact that we just live here in America, we get to know him. It's not, you know, a drag to go to church. It should be a joy for us to get up and go. And so, you know, there's always days that I feel like I don't want to get up and do the thing, but once I do, I always feel so much better in here, and that's really what matters at the end of the day. And so, first of all, my main point, I guess, and if you get nothing else from this, I hope you understand that God is real. He's very real. And I think that sometimes we get caught up in this idea that God is like a genie, you know, like he's supposed to just be there for us when we want, how we want, give us those 3 wishes that we've always been asking for, you know, in our hearts, and then just be on his merry way. But that's not how it works. And I think if you're young in your faith, maybe you kind of just assume that. But I'm here to tell you that's not how it works. And if you don't learn that the hard way, you're gonna learn it some way. But anyways, I think, you know, life is crazy. First of all, 2017 has been such a whirlwind for me. It's been a roller coaster, no doubt. And I guess, you know, God just has a really interesting way of speaking to us if we let him. And that's kind of another thing I want to talk about, is how we have to let him do the work that he's trying to do in our lives. And I think sometimes we just try and fight it, like, oh no, God, this can't be right, or like, you know, I don't really think that you have the plan for me that is right, you know. But that's not, first of all, that's the wrong mindset. I think that as much as, you know, even if you are a longtime Christian and you've known God for a long time and you're strong in your faith and in your walk with the Lord, I think, you know, even then, sometimes we have it wrong. And it's like, God knows that we're gonna mess up, right? Like, forgiveness is out there, but if we don't receive it, then we don't have it. And I think we all pretty much know that the Bible states all were sinned and all were forgiven, and I believe that wholeheartedly. I will till the day I die. And that's true, but you know, it's not just some magical statement that applies to everybody. It's like what I just said. Like, if we don't receive it, then we don't have it. So it's that free gift that's there, but we have to do what it takes, which is make the sacrifice and make the decision to reach out our hand and take it. And if we don't ever do that, then, you know, we are consciously rejecting the free gift that God has given us through salvation. And I think that that is one of the most important concepts, because that's your foundation with Christ, is your salvation and your belief in him. And if you don't have that, where's the relationship, right? We always talk about how Christianity, it's not a religion, it's a relationship. Or it's not about the religion, it's about the relationship. If you don't have that, you know, what do you have? A bunch of man-made rules that you follow? That's not, you know, that's not the relationship that Jesus wants with us. And gosh, I think especially in college, like, us kids get caught up in going to church and, you know, well, if I just do that, then I'm good. But that's not really the case. And you know, the more that you let God do the work on you that you need him to, it just gets better and better, and it just gets clearer. And, you know, it's easier to understand why we go through suffering and why we go through hard times and why things don't always turn out the way that we want. And I don't know, I just think it's really important to understand that, you know, growing up is such a crucial time. Like, people my age, the millennials and all that, you know, we always hear about how we're like the crazy bunch and the crazy generation, and I guess that's true. But you know, there's joy to be had in the journey of going through the growing up stage of your life, and I truly believe that. I think that you know, it's our job to throw the bait out there and share the word, and you know, we do the fishing, but Jesus does the catching. And that's such a beautiful idea, because we're, you know, as Christians, we're called to be little Jesuses. We're called to, you know, act like Christ. Like, that is literally our job. And if we're not, then we might want to second guess, take a step back and just kind of examine our lives, and you know, see if we're really doing the work of the Lord and being faithful in that. So I guess kind of something I want to touch on real quick is just that life isn't fair. And I think that some of us grow up with this idea that it's supposed to be, that, you know, life just is supposed to be this glorious journey for all of us, that we're just supposed to get everything we want, things are going to be handed to us, and this and that. And oh my gosh, nothing could be farther from the truth. You know, a lot of us are really, really blessed, and we're fortunate to live, especially somewhere here like America. And, you know, I think it's so simple and easy for us to take things for granted. And it's kind of one of those harder concepts that you really have to take a step back and think, wow, like, nobody owes me anything. And the second that you stop focusing on what people owe you, or what you think that people should owe you, and you start thinking about what you can do for others, you know, that is like the golden rule, essentially, right? Like, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Well, whatever kind of treatment or, you know, attitude you want someone to have towards you, like, you should first bestow it upon others, you know, like, extend that to other people, and they'll see that, and more than likely, if it's right, they'll reciprocate it to you back. And so life's not fair, you know, we talk about this a lot, but do we really get it? You know, I think that, it's just one of those things that you have to really, like, put in your mind. You can't just say, oh, well, life isn't fair. Like, you have to know it. And this is found in 1 Peter 2:13 through 17. I'm not going to read all that to you, but we have to understand who we're serving as Christians. And just a few points I want to run through here real quick. Number one is that we should submit under authority, because if you're a Christian, then your ultimate authority is Jesus Christ, and you can't try and fulfill that void yourself. You can't try and be God, right? Like, there's a reason that we aren't the higher power. There's a reason that we're here, and it's not because of us, right? Number two is that we will suffer under unfair authority. And I think that, you know, if God treated us fairly, we wouldn't have the opportunity to even have salvation. And that's so important to realize. You know, I think that in today's day and age, it's like we just think that suffering is pointless and that we're just supposed to be happy all the time. But, you know, that's not true. Like, true joy is found within your suffering so many times. And I think it's kind of the simple concept of just going through the rain before you get to the rainbow. And my third point is just that our ultimate authority has treated us eternally unfair, which is kind of tying into the second point. But that's basically just saying, like, if we got what we deserved, then we'd spend an eternity separated from God. We wouldn't even have the choice to know Him. But because He has such a big heart for us, you know, He died for each and every one of us. But even if I was the only one on the planet, He still would have done it for me, because I'm His people, right? We're His children. And so some things to remember, I think, you know, God has a plan for everybody, and that is like such a beautiful, crazy thing to even just fathom, right? Like, it's hard because we don't always want to believe that God knows what He's doing. As crazy as that is, it's like He created us, and He knows long before anything happens to us what is going to happen to us. And that's just so beautiful. Like, you know, God knew that I was going to be born almost 20 years ago before I even was, and He knows what's going to happen to my life 20 years from now, and He knows what's going to happen tomorrow, and I don't. And there's just something beautiful about that. And, you know, when life doesn't seem to be fair, our job is to be patient, because oftentimes through your hardest valleys, like, that's when God is working. That's when He's doing the work. And if you try and just avoid conflict or contrast or hard times or suffering, then you're taking away from the time that God needs to be working, right? And so sometimes I think the enemy of good, or the enemy of great is good, sorry. So sometimes we get so caught up in, like, all the good in our life, and when things go awry, we're like, oh no, like, you know, how could this be right? Like, how is this possible? Like, everything was going so well. But if you hold too tightly onto the good things, you're only hurting yourself, because you're taking yourself out of the picture of having the great things that God has planned for you. And I think that that's such an important concept. And one of the most important things that I heard at the porch at Watermark Church just a couple weeks ago was, we think we want justice, we settle for mercy, but we've been given grace. And oh gosh, I could just tear up talking about that, because God is like the most surreal thing. And I don't want to say thing, because, you know, he is a spiritual being that's inside of us, but it's so much more than that. And I think that we have to understand that our job is to be faithful and stay faithful. We can't just trust God or count on God whenever it's convenient for us, because he didn't design us to be that way, right? Like, he designed us to be faithful all the time and see him for who he truly is, and that is a just God who loves us more than we could ever possibly imagine. And that's something I've just come to terms with lately, and he has tugged at my heart. And you know, when you think you want justice, think again, because if we all got what we deserved, we'd be spending an eternity in hell, not even getting the chance to know him. And you know, we settle for mercy, and mercy's great, but we've been given grace, and it's not something that we deserve. It's not something that God, you know, just thought, well, I guess I'll give him grace today, or maybe in a couple weeks I'll give him some grace. You know, no, he is faithful to give it to us always, but we have to be willing to receive it. And sometimes that means certain sacrifices, and sometimes that means you know, being the better us and taking the steps, or whatever that means for you to get to be there. And I think just spending time with him is the most important thing we can do, because, you know, you want to know God, you got to spend time with him. If you say you want to know God, but you never read his word, or you never spend time in prayer, prayer is our vessel through God, you know, that's how we stay connected to him. And so it's so vitally important that we do that every day. It's not just something, you know, sometimes I think we get so tired of routine, but there's a reason, you know. Staying the course pays off, I promise. And, you know, if you thought it paid off when you were in high school and you made it to state in UIL, and you thought, oh wow, I just stayed the course and that was so worth it. Imagine staying the course in your whole life, knowing and learning more about Jesus Christ. Like, that is worth it. And you know, I'm only 19 and I can testify to that. So yeah, the next time that you think you want justice or you settle for mercy, just remember that you've been given grace, and you know, thank him for that, because we don't deserve it. We deserve so much less than what God has provided for us. And I think, you know, it's vital to understand him and his plan, and the only way that we can do that is just to spend more time with him. So I encourage you today to trust him. If you don't, I can't promise you a lot of things, but I can promise you that's worth it. And yeah, so thank you guys for taking the time to watch this. I hope everybody has a fabulous Easter weekend. I hope you're spending it, you know, with Jesus, because on the third day he rose, and that's pretty awesome if you ask me. So anyways, yeah, so I will talk to you guys later, and yeah, God bless.